right? So the topic for today is the quadratic equation word problems. Before you start, we probably need to go through some phrases and vocabulary that you need to recognize and be able to convert that into equations. So we'll look at these here. Now, I think the first two, we got odd numbers and even numbers. And odd numbers here, we consider mainly the positive odd numbers, 1, 3, 5, 7, 9. Even numbers, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. You may get negative odds as well. So that could be -1, -3, -5, like that, okay? And also negative even. So -2, -4, -6, for example. So these are mainly the numbers you use. We mainly use the positive ones, okay, when we're talking about odd and even, because they're the ones you normally think of, right? Now, another important term is consecutive numbers. Now, consecutive numbers are ones that follow each other. So, for example, 2 to 3, or 1 to 2, 5 to 6, 6 to 7. So if I said two consecutive numbers, you could write 7 and 8, or you could write 15 and 16, like that. So these are consecutive numbers. They're just numbers that follow each other. You could have consecutive even numbers. So of course that would be 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, like that. Or you could have consecutive odd numbers, 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, like that. Integers, you'll see this word integer, and this refers to numbers that are whole numbers, and they could be 0, positive, or negative. So we normally write that as the set Z. And Z is Zahlen, that's the German word for number. Okay, so minus infinity, you can get -3, -2, -1, 0, 1, 2, 3, up to infinity. Okay, and that's called a set. I just wrote that as a set of integers. Okay, so they're integers. You'll see that there's no fractions involved with integers. Okay, and this one you'll recognize, product means multiply. The sum and total means you add the numbers, find the sum, find the total. Quotient is referring to a division. So find the quotient. Okay, so for example, 16 on 8, the quotient would be 2. So that's called your quotient there. Difference refers to subtraction, as you probably know already. So subtraction. Now this one is square or squared number, and that's referring to power 2. You could have cube number as well. So if I said the cube number, could be written as x cubed. Okay, so you'll see this word square and square number. Square root obviously refers to the square root, and there will be a root 2 here. You could have cube root as well, which I haven't added, cube root. So cube root of x, you may see cube root as well, but more often square root in this topic. Two other words, exceed means more than, okay, greater than or more than. And usually we'll be using an addition. So for example, 6 centimeter exceeds 2 centimeters by 4 centimeters. So if you've got 2 centimeters and you add 4, you'll get to 6 centimeters. So exceed means addition in this case. So 2 plus 4 here. Now, reduce means to subtract, make something smaller. So if you got 80% on a test and I deducted 5%, you'll get 75, okay? It's a subtraction. So 9 reduced by 3 means 9 minus 3, which is 6. So if you got 9 on the test and I reduce your score by 3, you would subtract 3. Okay, you'll get less. You'll get 6. So here's some examples that I'll go through, and you can try some of these in a minute. You can take 5 minutes to do these. So we try to analyze them a bit. 6, okay, 6 more than x. So more than means it's being added on. So 6 plus x. So if x was 10, 6 more than 10 is 16, isn't it? So it would be 6 plus 10. So 6 more than 10 would be 16. 4 less than y. So if you got y was 10 again, so 4 less than 10 is going to be 6. So that would be the equivalent of saying 10 minus 4, which is 6. Okay, so don't write the 4 first. When you see some students see 4 less than y, they'll write 4 minus y, which is going to be wrong. It's 4 less than the first number. So the y will become in the first position here. So 4 less than y, so y minus 4. Double x, well, if you double a number, you multiply by 2, don't you? So double means times 2. Triple would be like times 3, triple. Quadruple would be times 4, quadruple. So the product of 8 and t, well, product refers to multiply. So the product of 8 and t is 8 times t. And we don't normally put the multiplication sign, we just write 8t. It means multiply. A third of y. So a third of y. So this means multiply. Whenever you see of in maths, it normally means multiply most of the time. So a half of 10 is, well, you know, a half of 10 is 5, isn't it? So if you multiply a half times 10, you're going to get 5. So of means multiply in most cases here. 6 more than twice a number, w. The number is w. So twice a number, okay, and 6 more than that. And more means adding on. So 6 plus 2w, okay. 4 less than triple a number p. Well, triple means times 3, okay. So that goes first. So triple your number, times it by 3, and then 4 less than that. So it's 3p minus 4. So be careful with this less than question. It can go on the end here. So if I got 100 and I got 4 less than 100, I get 96, don't I? So we subtract the 4. So getting a bit more tricky. The product, well, product means multiply, of 2 consecutive even numbers, y. So the first number is y. So let's look at that. So this, well, before we go on, let's think about consecutive even numbers. So for example, we have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, and so on. If your first number is y, so we'll take the first number to be y, okay? The next number must be y plus 2. So 2 is 2 plus 2 to give 4, isn't it? So if the first number is y, to get the next even number, we add 2 to that. And if you want the next one, it would be y plus 4 and so on. But we're really only interested in the first 2 here. If I have 3 consecutive even numbers, we would include this one here, the y plus 4. And it says product here, so we multiply. So the first number is y. The second number is y plus 2. So y times y plus 2. And you may want to expand that, y squared plus 2y later on. but for this exercise, doesn't matter. Now this is 16 divided by 4 times the number A. 4 times a number. So if I don't give you the A, you have to make up something like X or Y or G or P or whatever. 4 times the number, I called it A. So 16 divided by 4A. So that's actually 16 on 4A, isn't it? Which is the same as 4 on A. So if you wanted to, you could simplify that to be 4 on A as well. Okay, so the last one, the sum of, so sum is plus 2 consecutive odd numbers, U. So the first number is U. So consecutive odd numbers, let's say it's 1, 3, 5, 7, okay? The first one is U. It doesn't matter where you put U because you're going to get the same answer. So if U is here, equivalent to 5, the next odd number will be U plus 2. So the rule is the same whether it's odd or even. It will be U plus 2 as the next odd number. Okay, so the first number is U. The next odd number would be U plus 2. And it says sum, so we add them here. So if you simplify that, you'll get 2U plus 2 if you simplify and remove the bracket. Okay, with question A, so we've got 12 less than a number P. So if your number's P, we have 12 less than this. So that must be P minus 12. Okay, not 12 minus P. 12 less than a number P. So P minus 12. So be careful with these less than questions here. Okay. So P goes first. 6 more than, so more is plus, than 3 times a number X. So if your number is 3X, we want 6 more than that. So we would add 6. It doesn't matter where the 6 goes, does it? Because it's addition. So 6 plus 3X, same thing, right? Half a number M divided by 8. So half a number M. So half M divided by 8. So let's write that here. Half M divided by 8. That's okay, but you could simplify that, couldn't you? You'd write half M times 1 on 8. Remember from like grade 6, when you change a division to multiply, we'll flip this fraction over here. So you'll get 1 on, well, M on 16 actually. We'll put M on the top because M is actually on the top here. So M on 16 is also okay for that one there. So D, 1/3 of a number G that has been increased, so it's going up, so we add 6. So 1/3 of a number G, so 1/3 of a number G, 1/3 G, increased by 6, plus 6 on either side is okay again. Okay. E, the sum of a number B and its square. So if your number is B, let's clean a bit. So if your number is B, the sum of the number and its square. So that would be B squared. Okay. So I didn't specifically say B squared, but it's implied. A B and its square. Okay, B plus B squared. So question F, the sum of 2 consecutive numbers, the first number being Y. So the first number is Y. What's the next number? Y plus 1. Okay, it's the next number, which will give you 2Y plus 1 there. So if the first number is 2, the next number would be 2 plus 1, which is 3, okay? So Y plus 1. So a little bit harder here, G. The sum of the squares of two consecutive numbers. So let's say the first number is P, but let's say you've got 1, 2, 3, 4. The sum of the squares. The first number is P. Let's say it's that one. But here it says the sum of the squares. So the sum of the squares. This will be P plus 1, and this will be squared. Does that make sense? So the first number is P, but here it says the sum of the squares of those numbers. So we square each number like that. And that would be 3, for example. So that would be like 2 squared plus 3 squared. And you'll get an answer there. So the sum of the squares. So the squares are the powers. And that's sum. And these are your consecutive numbers. Okay, so that's a little bit tricky, that one, but you will see it in the word problems. In H, the sum of the squares of two even numbers, the first being G. So now we have, these should be consecutive as well. I should have written consecutive here. So if your first number is 2, your first even number, the next one would be 4, wouldn't it? So if your first number is G here, the next number must be G plus 2, isn't it? For the next even number, because you're adding 2. So if that's 2, 2 plus 2 is 4. If it's G, it's G plus 2 to give G plus 2. But here it says the squares as well and the sum. So we add them and then we square them like that. So the sum of the squares of the consecutive even numbers. So if that was 1 and 3, if you're doing odd numbers, it's exactly the same equation. It would be G plus G plus 2 squared. So odd and even number have the same rule for this pattern of G and G plus 2. So for even, it's written the same way, and odd. So don't put an odd number here. Don't put 1, because then you'll get a consecutive number, not the consecutive odd number. All right. So they all have the same pattern, even and odd consecutive numbers like that. And if you square them too, that's what it would look like for both even and odd. Okay. Okay, so the hard bit now here is to get your equation. So find equation. So this is the hard bit. Once you find your equation, we solve. And then we can answer the problem. The hardest bit is finding the equation first. Okay, once you can do that, you already know how to solve these equations because we've been doing it 2 or 3 weeks already. Okay, so let's take a look at keywords. We've got the sum of a certain positive number, some number. So what we should do is call that X. And the square of that number is 12. So let's say the first number is X. You can call this G, S, T, P, Q, whatever, Y, it doesn't matter. But normally we use X, don't we, in maths? So we'll stick with X. So, and then the second number is the square of that number. So if you square X, you'll write X squared, won't you? Okay, and now we want the sum of these two numbers. So X plus X squared. That's the sum here of the number and its square. So let's just highlight so we know where we are. So this is your sum here, and this is the number we start with here. And when you add them, you'll get 12. You could start guessing numbers now, but what I'd rather see you do is how to solve this, because some questions have really big numbers and you won't be able to guess them easily. So once you have your equation, that's your first step. And then from that step, we already know how to solve these. And most questions you can use factorization or the quadratic formula. I wouldn't bother with the complete square method because it takes too long. So we have x squared plus x minus 12 equals 0. So this looks like a fairly straightforward problem because we have a 1 here. So let's just do factorization and see if that works. Okay, so we've got x squared. So we know these two will be x. And we want two numbers that multiply to be minus 12 and then add to be 1. The minus 12 is here and the 1 is the b term here. This is like your AC method, but AC is minus 12. So that would be 4 and minus 3, isn't it? So 4 times minus 3 minus 12. 4 minus 3 is 1. So it will be x plus 4, x minus 3. Okay, so just review factorization if you need to, because it's a fairly common method here. So therefore, x equals minus 4 and 3. But if you go back to your question, we only want the positive number x, positive x. So you see that there? So go back and read your question, actually what you want. So we only want the positive value, which is 3. So the minus 4 is not needed here. So we can say, therefore, x equals 3. And the second number would be 9, x squared. So that's your number there. But the second number would be 9. It would be x squared. So that would have been 9. Okay. But that's actually your answer there. That's all I need. What is the number? This number here. Okay. So 3 for that one. Okay. So what do we got here? If the product, keyword product, so we have a multiply of 2 consecutive positive even integers. So for example, your answer could be 6 and 8. Okay, so these are your 2 even integers. So the first one will be x. So let first number equal x. Okay, so the second number must be x plus 2. That's your next even integer. So that would be x plus 2. Okay, let's clean that out. And here it says product of these numbers. So x times x plus 2 is equal to 120. Okay, so then now you can see this is just an equation. We'll expand it and solve it. So x times x, x squared. X times 2, 2x. Bring your 120 over, minus 120 equals 0. And I factorized that and I got x plus 12, x minus 10 equals 0. So 12 times minus 10, minus 120. 12 minus 10 is 2. So these are your correct factors. Therefore, x equals minus 12 and 10. But go back to your question. We wanted the positive even integers, not negative even, not that one. So your answer here is 10. So therefore, x equals 10. Let's write that here actually. So your second number must be 10 plus 2, which is 12. So those are your 2 numbers. So the 2 numbers are 10, and 12. That's your answer there. So ignore the negative one because we're not interested in the negative even integers. Sometimes you use both numbers, but not this question. So for question 3, let's look at the keywords. The sum of the squares of 2 consecutive positive odd numbers. So again, for odd number, for example, 5 and 7. The first odd number can be x. The second odd number can be x plus 2. Okay, so just think of it like that. But here we've got the sum of the squares. So we need to square these numbers. So you'll end up with x squared, the sum, so plus x plus 2 squared. And you should get 650. So as you can see again, we just have a quadratic equation here. So first number x, we square that. The second odd number is x plus 2. We square that and we should get 650. Okay, so we've got x squared plus, now let's expand that, x squared plus 4x plus 4 equals 650. So be careful with that, remember. Some students think that's x squared plus 4. It's not, is it? You're missing the middle term here. So don't just square both. You can't do that when you have addition. And I do see that sometimes with some students, not really your class, but in the past. So remember that's a plus b squared. A squared plus 2ab plus b squared. And if that's minus, that would be minus. Okay, so keep that in your mind when you have this part here. So we can write that out as 2x squared plus 4x minus 646 equals 0. So the numbers are pretty big, so why don't we divide everything by 2 now, like before? So we'll end up with x squared plus 2x minus 323 equals 0. And at that point, we will factorize. These numbers are pretty big, so you can use your quadratic formula if you want to as well. So x plus 19 and x minus 17. Okay, 19 minus 17 is 2. And when you multiply them, you'll get minus 323. So x will be equal to minus 19 and 17. And remember, we only wanted the positive numbers here. So that means we only consider the positive answer here. Okay, so the minus 19 can be ignored. So your first number is x, which is 17. And your second number is x plus 2. So that would be 19. So those are your two numbers. So 17 and 19. So remember, you start to think about your final answer. So don't just write that as your final answer because you won't get all the marks. So you need to go back and think about the original question. Okay, so these will be your two numbers, 17 and 19. The two numbers, find the numbers. Okay, so for question 4, we've got the product of the ages of a man and his son is 160, the product. So what I would do here, let the age of the man be X, the father. Let's start there. And we have a son, so let's call him Y for now. All right. But I don't want to have two variables because I'm going to get stuck. Remember, when you solve equation, you only have x squared plus 2x plus 1. You don't have any y. So we really don't want this y here. But you do read here that the product of their ages is 160. So that's the same as saying xy equals 160, isn't it? Okay. But from here, I can say that y is 160 on x. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to replace that y with 160 on x for the son's age. So that's the same as saying 160 on x. Okay, so now I only have this in terms of x, which is better. I have one equation. I don't want two variables. I can't solve it. So that's why I'm trying to get in terms of x. So in terms of x only. Okay, so what I'll do, I'll set up a table. I've got the age now. And in 4 years' time, so age in 4 years' time. And I've got the son's age and the father's age here. So son, age, son's age, father, or the man, the father's age. Okay, so now this would be 160 on x, which is the age now. And that's the son. The man is x. The father is x, so we put that there. So in 4 years' time, this will be 160 on x plus 4. And the father will be x plus 4, like that. So the important part now is that in 4 years' time, the man will be 4 times as old as his son. So that means if we multiply the son by 4, we'll get the father's age. So 160 on x plus 4 equals x plus 4. So this ends up being our equation we need to solve. So we'll multiply that out. We'll get 640 on x plus 16 equals x plus 4, like that. The problem here is you've got x in the denominator, and we don't like to have denominators. So let's multiply all of this by x. So let's multiply everything by x. Okay, so x will go here, x will go here, and I'll put x here to cover both of them. So that x will cancel. So you'll end up with 640 plus 16x equals x squared plus 4x. So we need to rearrange this equation. We'll get x squared minus 12x minus 640 equals 0 when we rearrange this equation. So this is your equation you need to solve now to find the son's and the father's age. So if you factorize that, you're going to get x plus 20 x minus 32. Those numbers are quite big, so you may want to use your quadratic formula here, but you can factorize it, and these are the factors. So in this case, x will be minus 20, and then x will be 32. Now, ages can't be negative, can they? So this minus 20 for the age can't be used, which means your answer is 32, which is the father's age. So we can say, therefore, father age is 32. The son's age is 160 on 32, which is 5. So the son's age, 160 on 32, which is here. So that equals 5 years old. And the father is 32 years old. So that's how you do that problem.